We also have had 3 miscarriages at early stages of pregnancy, one of which was twins. And just wanted to say a bit about supporting a friend through that situation and what might be helpful.
Yeah, I think from my own experience, sometimes the temptation is to try and measure the loss or to try and quantify the loss. So in our own minds, we may think, oh, that person's baby went to term and was born, what a huge loss, which of course it was. But at the same time, I think we need to be very careful, because parents losing a child early on in pregnancy can also be very, very difficult and is a huge loss as well. So I think if I were in that situation, I'd want to be very careful not to try and make up my own mind about the levels of suffering which the couple are going through, but recognising that every child is different, every pregnancy is different, every stage of pregnancy carries its own difficulties, and parents can feel loss, right across the spectrum. And it's not our duty to try and compartmentalise or quantify that loss, but just to show compassion in what is a very difficult situation.
You don't know how long somebody might have been trying for a baby, and if somebody has a miscarriage at 6 weeks, that could be on the back of years of trying, and people saying things like, well, you can have another one, or just these sort of trite comments can completely devalue the sense of loss that someone feels. For me, losing the twin pregnancy was the most difficult. Maybe it was the timing, maybe it was the fact that it was 2, because I'd lost one already. But I think friends who you share that with, and sometimes it can be a very secret thing because it is early and it's not been announced, but friends that you share that with, I think it's really, if you're the person that's heard this news, just being very sensitive to how traumatic that might be for somebody, because the hopes, the dreams, everything is there from the moment you see a positive pregnancy test, and you already know that is a child, and it's in God's eyes, this is a value. This isn't just a pregnancy. And some of the medical language doesn't help, when they use terms like products of conception, you go into hospital, and that is really devalues the fact that this is a child that you'd hoped for and longed for, and that needs to be acknowledged, and people can do that in a lot of imaginative and creative and really helpful ways. So in the same way, don't step back from your friends if they're going through this.
Yes, I think there's something about, as you say, the medical terminology which can dehumanise the individuality of the unborn child, and I think anything which helps to humanise and to recognise that child, albeit unborn child, as an individual of great worth is incredibly important, and yet in our society we're bombarded with narratives which tell us the opposite.
The bit in Psalm 130 line which said, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, every day was ordained for me, was already written in your book. I take that from the moment of the baby's conception, and if that is only a matter of a few weeks, it doesn't mean that that person isn't a real life and a real child. And it's interesting that only once from all of my miscarriages did I know the sex of the child, and that was because I was going through recurrent miscarriage. So they told me it was a little girl, and she had a chromosome 8 abnormality, and somehow that connection, it was what I'd always known, but it somehow seemed to add a weight and a kind of, it seemed to add something to our knowledge of that child. But a lot of parents don't have that, obviously, but the feelings are still there.
And I think also, although you can't be prescriptive about this because every situation is different, I think there are situations where the parents can feel some degree of guilt, had I done something differently, or they can take a loss upon themselves. And I think it's important to refrain from being judgmental about a situation, because as an observer, as an outsider, you can never know what is really going on. And so I think non-judgmental, unconditional love and acknowledgement of the difficulty is what will help, I think, most situations.
Mm.